Howdy, I'm Matt, and in this video for you we have the full review of the AR Stealth Wing. Now before we go any further, I need to let you know there are 9 issues which you need to know about this wing before purchasing it, and I mean there are 9 issues which you need to know about it. But with that said, it's super fast with the setup which I've got. It's also super quiet, so those of you which are worried about setting it up and it's going to be a screaming little monkey, this setup is ridiculously fast, literally above 100 miles an hour, and it is very, very quiet for the speed. And also, it's really quick to build. I genuinely mean that, really, really quick to build, although I did go on and laminate mine. So what have we got in this episode for you? We have, like I said, the full review of this wing. There are some definite good points to this, but like I said, there are 9 issues which you need to know about. Some of them more serious than others. But with that said, what we're going to do, we're going to jump across to the flight line. We are going to have her line of sight maiden. We're then going to come back, quickly review what we learned as part of the line of sight maiden. Then we're going to go up and fly our FPV. Now before we fly our FPV, is that I'm going to give you a couple of things to look out for, okay, because this comes hand in hand with the 9 things which we need to know about at the end of this review. And of course then at the end we will discuss those 9 points about this wing which you really do need to be aware of, and especially you need to be aware of if you're considering this wing over maybe like the Reptile S800, because depending upon your circumstances, the Reptile S800, because it's half the price, could be the perfect model for you. Or it might not be the perfect model. Again, this is why we need to put everything into perspective. Now, before we go and hit the flight line, I do feel it's really important that I also stress another key point. This model was bought out of my own money for my own abuses. Do keep that in the back of your mind. It was not a freebie for review. I bought this out of my own money from my own abuses. And I can tell you I really did abuse it on the weekend, which is class, happy days. Anyway, let's get across to the flight line. I'll see you there. Cheerios! This is the maiden of the AR Stealth Wing. You're going to be up in the nose there. I have got the Sunny Sky motor on it, and it will balance without lead if you put a 2205 motor in it, but I wanted the X2216 1250 kV motor. Anyway, just go and get you in the nose and go and give you a lob. So, that's kind of in the right place.
Go for in the nose for the maiden.
Yeah, always a good idea, yeah? There we go, hope that works out alright. CG is what it says it's supposed to be. Yeah, slightly nose heavy, if anything. Right. Fucking hell, that is rather quick. And it just... That's low rates as well. That's low rates. That needs some servo manual trim putting in that, because that's low rates. Plenty of thrust. It's got a nice little that was all glide on the way down then. Super quiet, loads of speed, and I can't believe that I'm on low rates and that is a right handful. So I'll try and bring it in for a slower pass. There you go. So bring it around for a figure of 8. You understand now why I painted the top of the wing. You just wouldn't see it if it was just jet black. So again.
then we're at full glide now, full glide. Still gliding, still gliding, still gliding, still gliding, still gliding. Full knacker. Now with the wind, it's certainly got some speed on it. I should really think about trimming it, but hey ho. That has got some pace on it, to say the least. I'm still gliding. That was glide from up to the very top. Oh, straight in the current bun. I gotta go a bit careful, that was only a half-used battery. Right, landing, gents. Right, coming into land. I'm gliding at the moment. That's all glide. That's all glide. All glide. Get down. Right. Let's take the nose off. I hope you're still recording. Yeah, it's showing red light. It's all go here. Right, that surprised me. I had some reservations over this wing, put it that way, and I will discuss those in a moment back at the desk. But in short, that flew fast, it was quiet, and it far exceeded anything which I thought. I did have some reservations over it being almost twice as expensive as the S800. It was great, absolutely great, really, really fast. I need to go and put some mechanical sub trim in that because that was just wild. So for myself, Matt, let's get back to the desk and I'll give you my final thoughts. For myself, Matt, cheerios.
So that was her line of sight maiden, and I had to go a little bit careful. I didn't rag her too much because it was only a half-used, or it was a half-used battery, which I used in there for the line of sight maiden because I didn't intend to be in the sky for too long. What I've now got for you is the FPV Maiden, so it's pure onboard footage with the GoPro. And what I'd like for you to do is, number one, realise how fast this model really is flying in the sky. It's not sped up, it's just the pure HD footage, which I'm sure many of you have probably already seen the raw footage, which I posted a day or so ago on the YouTube channel. While this model is going that fast, look out for the wobble, especially at the full speed. Now, this is one of the 9 points which I'm going to raise with you at the end of this video, is because there are several things which you need to be aware about this model. But for right now, I'd just like to prime you with, number one, look out for the shakiness on it at top speed, and we need to address that, especially if you're going to be flying your model as fast as what I was flying mine. The other thing is as well, just a daft point, just coming back from the line of sight maiden, because of the motor setup which I've got, this wing was extremely quiet, and actually some of the lads back on the flight line, they commented that it was a really quiet wing. And that's actually a good point. I know that for many of you, you're going to stick a quad motor on the back with a 6x4 and it's going to scream its knackers off. The point which I'd actually like to make to you is that it doesn't actually need to be that way. And those of you, and again, I mentioned this around the S800, the Reptile Sky Shadow S800, is that there's a couple of different scenarios which you need to be aware of. And if you are looking for an upgrade, then from your S800 is that you may start thinking to yourself that you want longer flight times, you want bigger batteries, you want more efficiency. So having a screamy little motor on the back is maybe not the right setup for you. And this is what we're going to cover at the end of this review. And I've talked too much, so I'm going to say a big thank you for watching the first part of this review. But we are going to plow on and look out for that shakiness when we're absolutely caning the nuts off it. Oh, and also keep in the back of your mind, I am trying to keep to straight up and down circuits. And the reason for that is purely just safety, as in that this is the first time which I've flown at FPV. We do have a crosswind as well, so I'm just keeping to an up and down route just while I get used to the model and I get some confidence with it. Anyway, flight line, see you there.
Right, off we goes. Right, well that was the best I could do in the wind conditions, and we were playing chicken with the hedge down there, to say the least, and we did find some seagulls as well, which was happy days. So that was the FPV Maiden of the AR Stealth Wing. Bit twitchy out there today, could definitely do with a stabiliser to be honest, but besides that, bloody good fun and rapid. Cheerios. Was that fast on the flight line? Was that fast?
Yeah.
That belted it along there, and hardly any noise as well, was it?
At least a ton, wasn't it?
Do you reckon?
Yeah, at least I've said. If not more.
That motor's hot. Quick rundown on the setup. 2200 4S and 30 amp ESC, which is undersized for what I was doing then, considering it was 4S. And yeah, the motor's hot, ESC is cooking, battery's warm. We wrecked it. Brilliant.
Howdy, it's Matt. You already know that. And we're back at the desk, and it's time for our final summary for the review of the AR Stealth Wing. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, I mentioned in the middle, and it's now time for me to pick up those, and I said 9, but actually it's actually 11 things which you need to know about this wing. Overall, before we go any further, I do want to stress it flies really, really well. Okay, that's probably the one thing which I want to know if I was in your shoes. Does it fly well? And the answer to that is yes, it does fly really, really well. And I hope that you saw in the FPV footage when we did the rolls across the flight line, I wasn't that far off the ground, and I had every confidence to be able to do that. However, with that said, there is a catalogue of things which you need to know if you're going to spend, what I'm actually going to say, quite a bit of money on this model, because that is one thing which we are going to be discussing at the very end, whether you should be buying an AR Stealth Wing, or maybe whether your money would be better off spent on a Reptile S800, and that is a massive consideration, and I know that because I've struggled with the torment as being a reviewer for you, and we will look at the two different circumstances for that. So let's talk about and again I've got a little list here, so let's talk about the centre of gravity. Now, a massive tip for you is what I've been and done is up underneath this wing, there is two little nodules, really obvious that the CG is there. I've been and put some little pins in there. I hope that's coming out alright for you on the camera. And to hit CG with a GoPro Hero 3 in the nose, I did have to add a fair chunk of lead and then a little bit more. Now, it's not a lot of lead, but there is a chunk of lead, and I had to add a little bit more as well, just to make sure the CG was right and it was spot on in the middle of their mark, and it flew great on there. But I did have to add lead to the nose. Now, one of the reasons why I had to add lead to the nose is because I am not using a quad motor on the back. What I'm actually using is a Sunny Sky X2216 1250 kV motor with an 8x6 propeller. Those of you which have got a mini Talon, you'll know that setup. That is like the best setup for a mini Talon. This setup on a mini Talon will cruise like at a really good pace at about 8 amps or less. Okay, in this wing, I don't really have an idea on what it will cruise at. It's probably not. An educated guess would be at around about 4 amps just by using it in other models. It's a very efficient setup. It's also a very quiet setup, so if you do put something like a DYS SE2205 2300 kV with a 6x4 prop on the back, it will scream its knackers off. Okay, inversely, in this setup, the guys on the flight line, they did comment, Matt, that was really fast and it was really quiet. Okay, it's a very quiet, very efficient and setup, but also crucially, keep in the back of your mind, a very fast setup as well. It was Andrew on the flight line, and Dave agreed with him that they reckoned it was over 100 miles an hour on the flight line. You can make your own decision from that flight footage, but it wasn't any slow coach by any stretch of the imagination. So CG is a consideration, and keep in the back of your mind, I was using, and again I'll put the whole setup which I used in the video description for you. I did have a 2200 4S pack rammed up in the nose, like I said, with a GoPro Hero 3 in the nose too. So yeah, it is going to be a bit of a challenge for as far as battery goes. Getting everything in there, you will get iNav in here. It's not going to be as much of a squeeze as it perhaps is with the Reptile S800. So topic number 1 was the CG. Topic number 2 is the wingtips. I really do not like the wingtips. The one thing which I know is just going to fall off this model is the wingtips. There is only 2 little screws holding these wingtips on, and I don't give them more. And again, I've only had 2 free flights with this one. I don't think it's going to last me another 2 or 3 flights. I think these wingtips are going to fall off. Okay, so my biggest tip for you would probably, and that's what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to glue the wingtips on, because I just don't think they're going to stay on. That is a big weakness on this model. Oh, and again, it's not in these notes, but I think it's worth pointing out for me just to stress to you, because it's kind of linked into a later one. I have laminated this, and I need to just put in a note on here, lam, okay, because the lam has definitely improved the flight characteristics. So wingtips, I don't like. CG, you need to be aware of it. So that's 2 down. A major flaw in this model, okay, and perhaps this is the biggest flaw in this model, and it's to do with the lid, okay, and the model as a whole, is that you'll see that we do have a knacker duct on the top, which is a fair old size underneath, is completely inadequate, okay, wholly inadequate in every shape or form. You need cooling inside of your models, and this model has 0 cooling. So combine that, it's a token hole, you know, okay, you need a hole like 2 times the size that, and another ventilation hole in this lid. Okay, you just cannot get, it's just got no entry point for air into this model. So if we put it up like so, if I put that lid down, the hole in the nose, and again you do get multiple little nose cones, that one was on the wrong way round, you've got the camera lens in there, so no air gets in there, and that little knacker duct on the top, you're just going to get no air in there. And also there is no exit for the air out of the back of the fuselage. And those of you, and again I was taught this by somebody else, basically for whatever size hole you've got entry for air to go in a model, you need 4 times the size of the hole coming out the back. This model just fails in every single way, and I know that I was caning the absolute nuts off this model to get you some really good FPV footage. And that ESC, which is, yeah, I should have been using a 40 amp ESC if I'm frankly honest, but the ESC had melted the glue on the back of it, on the Velcro, and you couldn't keep your finger on it for more than about a second. And that just highlighted that, number one, it was the wrong combo, but also there is just no cooling in this lid at all. So what am I going to do with this one? I'm going to put a huge, maybe 1, maybe even 2 knacker ducts in this top, and I'm going to put some big ass holes, and you have to excuse my language there, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to put some nice big holes in the back of the model to allow the air to escape. I am seriously concerned about the ventilation in this model. It is wholly inadequate, okay? So, and again, give me a couple of days and I'll put some photos in the Facebook group. So, shameless plug for the Facefuls group. And in the video description below there's a link to the Rag the Nuts Off Facebook group, and I will put some photos of how I've been and modded this one in there later this week. So cooling, that is probably the major one. Price. At the time of publishing, this wing is about, we're going to say $90. Okay, because it's a nice round number, we'll give or take a few dollars. Okay, so this wing is $90, and the Reptile S800 is $45. Okay, so half the price of a AR stealth wing. Now that is a major consideration, because well, no, not in theory, for all intents and purposes, you can have 2 Reptile S800 wings for one of these, and this wing is not, okay, it flies great, it's a good model, okay, but is it twice as good as a Reptile S800? My answer to you on that, just taking a point of view from price only, okay, my answer to that is no. It is not twice the model of an S800. However, we need to put this into proportion. This is where we were talking about that question or that point of view or that perspective which we had earlier, which is if you are a new pilot and you maybe you're coming from quads and you want your first FPV wing, then my answer to you, so if that's your question, if that's the point of view which you're coming from and you're looking at this wing, then I would suggest to you that a Reptile S800 would be a far superior choice for you because it's really indestructible. And I know that because I've been and put one in a tree at over 100 miles an hour and it survived, and on its first FPV flight I hit a tree with it, second flight I hit an tree with it, third flight I hit a tree with it as well. It's a really tough model. Now if you've not been and met the Reptile S800, in the top right hand corner I've been and put a link there to its playlist. Go and meet that model, and I wholeheartedly believe that is better value of money for you if you're new to flying wings, okay? Because frankly, you need something which is robust, and the S800 will fulfill a lot of unscheduled landings, okay? It's a nice, tough model. Now let's take the point of view that maybe you have already been flying the S800, the Reptile, the Sky Shadow S800, and you're looking for something which you have a little bit more room inside the fuselage, you want a thicker chord speed, chord on it, you want potentially a faster model, and you want to be able to run more battery, and you're basically a more experienced pilot. Now, if you take the point of, if we take that point of view, and you've already owned an S800 and you've enjoyed your S800 and you're looking for something similar with a few extra upgrades, like the biggest one really is the size of the fuselage, then absolutely, it is going to be a good upgrade for you, okay? But not a starting wing by any stretch of the imagination. A Reptile S800 would be a far superior choice instead. But those of you looking to upgrade from your existing S800, maybe your S800 is looking a bit worse for wear now, and you've been and got your experience level up, good upgrade. Okay, so that's what I was saying earlier about the perspectives. It depends which way you're coming at it. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And again, if you disagree with me, then let me know in the comments section underneath this video. I'd really appreciate your feedback. So that was price. The next thing is wholly inadequate as well. It's these push rods. Utter rubbish. There's a video in the Facebook group of me pushing these push rods back to their full limit, and they just bend. They are completely inadequate. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to turn this around, so I hope this comes out on the camera okay. You'll see what I've been and done on there, and I'll zoom in on that for you, is that I've been and put some carbon rod on top, and I've been and put some heat shrink tubing over the top, and that's made it a million times stiffer. Again, if you've got a model which is traveling at 100 miles an hour, you do not want push rods which are going to flex. Okay, so those were, for all intents and purposes, utter crap. Okay, but very, very easily resolved. So I can tick that one off, push rods. Next one is again another one of those serious issues. Wing flex. This wing only has a single spar in the middle of the wing, which I'll just point out for you, which is back here. It's a carbon fibre square rod or tube which goes through. It's not particularly or massively long, but there is a tube in there, and there is also some token carbon, I presume carbon, maybe even glass fibre rod in the wing structure itself. However, that is not enough for this wing, especially considering it does over 100 miles an hour. Remember in that at the beginning in the FPV piece, there I said look out for the shakiness when we're going at full knacker. The reason why I'm saying I'm look out for the shakiness is because, and again I hope that this is going to come out, is that this flexes too much. I don't know if you can see that on there. This wing flexes way too much, and it's both ways, okay? And it's flexing on the weak point, which is around the servo. That's what's caused that shakiness when we're going at full knacker, because these wings are under maximum load. And also keep in the back of mind, I have laminated this model, this wing as well, so that should have made it tougher. So as I'm pushing it down, it should be stretching, and the laminate which is on the bottom of the wing should be resisting that, but it's still too flexible. This wing needs more carbon in it. It needs carbon fibre strip, maybe about 4 or 5 mils tall by only about 1 millimetre thick, and it needs some fair amount in this wing here, because that is just too weak. Okay, and it's doing it on both sides, and it seems to be pivoting around the servo, and again, I need to go and dig some out, and I'm not entirely sure on what pattern I'm going to be using. Again, look in the Facebook group for an update around this wing, but the wings, these tips, they are too flexible, okay, and it's doing it on both sides, so you are going to need to put some carbon fibre strip in this wing to toughen it up, okay, because I know that for the majority of you watching this video don't know how, or maybe have never laminated a model before, and there's me saying I have laminated this model and it's still too flexy for my liking, okay, so it needs to be made stiffer. Saying that, actually, the elevons worked out alright. There's no strengthening in the elevons themselves at all, there's no extra carbon in them, and they seem to perform really, really well. So that was wing flex. Oh, that brings us on to, again, that nicely brings us on to the elevons. A little tip for you is that you do not need, and again, the manual for this is a piece of paper with a picture on one side and a blown up model on the opposite side, and absolutely no suggestion over elevon movement. Now I can tell you, obviously, and again I'm sure you know this, the faster you fly the less movement you need for a big reaction. It's just like driving down the motorway or the highway if you're in the US, and if you're driving really fast you only need a little bit of movement on the steering wheel, but if you're coming into maybe a parking, for example, you need to use lots of steering wheel. The same applies to a model based upon speed. And the thing which I was struggling with, not only in the line of sight Maiden, but also in the FPV flight as well, is that my servo movements were restricted down to 40% of the servo movement, and I had something like 40-50 expo on the sticks, and it was still wild. So you do not need a lot of elevon movement in this wing, and in fact something which I need to do for this wing is that, and again hopefully this comes out on the camera for you, if you can see just down here, so I hide myself behind it, I need to move this push rod down another step. So I'm going to be on the third hole down from the top on a Corona 939 servo to try and limit some of the movement in the elevons, because even on 40% movement with loads of expo, it was still quite tricky to manage, and I'm sure that came out of the footage as well. It really was a handful, so look out for the amount of elevon movement. Another tip, well, this isn't actually an issue, this is more of like a tip for you. One thing we should do, again, doesn't say in the manual, and I don't know how well this is going to come out for you, I hope this comes out on the camera, is the very inside edge of the elevon. You need to get a sharp knife and trim that edge off. The reason being is that if you are going to be flying with big movements, is that was catching on the actual model itself. So you do need to trim that corner off. That's, again, we got no manual with this, and that's something which I spotted when I was just moving the elevons around. Also, staying on the topic of the elevons, is I've laminated mine. If you don't laminate your model, definitely do put some blendum tape along that edge. Okay, if you never put blendum on a model, don't know what I'm talking about with this, there's a link in the top right hand corner to the video on blendum tape. If you don't have any blendum tape, at least put some sellotape on the hinge, because the hinges are utter crap. Okay, we saw that in the unboxing. I broke it because I was smashing it on the desk, you know, but yeah, the hinges are utter rubbish, no big surprise there at all, so you will need to put some tape on there. So that's that one out of the way. Trim the edge off the elevons. Wings break off, yeah. Unlike the Reptile S800 where the wings are actually glued on, with this model, all it is just two little thumb screws which screw in, and again, I hope this is going to come out on the camera. There's a thumb screw just down there, with a tiny, it's only like a 3mm bolt, if that, that's not gonna last. Okay, if you hit a tree with this model, that thread is just gonna rip straight out and the wing is gonna fall off. Okay, which depends which way you look at it. For me, if I've got a model which is flying at a ton, okay, over my head, is that I don't want it so the wings are gonna fall off. So I have screwed them in. Okay, I am going to go on and glue the wings on, and also note is that I have been to put some sellotape along the seams as well, not only for aerodynamics but also to make sure the wings actually stay on. Okay, if I was to have hit a tree at 100 miles an hour, those things would have just broken instantly. So this one I am going to go on and I am going to glue the actual wing pieces together once I've been and sorted out some dedicated FPV wiring in the nose. And again, I didn't use the camera slot on the right hand side, I used the little pod on the top because frankly I didn't know what it was going to be like in the sky and whether it was going to be worth the investment to go on and actually install full-blown FPV gear in here. And the answer is yes, it is. So I will go on and do that. So that was the wings break off. Number 11 was no manual for the rates. Okay, we've covered that. I've incorporated that earlier. Yeah, you don't need a lot of servo movement. No more than like I'm going to say about 1/4 of an inch in old money, or those of you which are in new money, probably about 7mm of movement up and down. That's all you need on your elevons, and that's all you need really, to be honest, and that should be more than adequate. Okay, obviously you might want to give yourself just a little bit more, but just be aware it is very sensitive on the elevons, and that wasn't because it was tail heavy, it was just really sensitive, and we were also flying really fast as well. Brilliant. And the last one, which is I feel is really, really important, I know this model is called the AR Stealth Wing, and Dave did take the piss out of me on the flight line and say, Matt, that stealth wing's not very stealthy with the way which you've been and painted it. And I've got to be honest, it's not the most stealthiest the models are going. You'll see I've got some bright yellow spray paint on the top, and I've put the stickers on the bottom of the model as well. So we've got some stripes on one wingtip. And by the way, if you're looking to do the same in your model, I just used some masking tape, some white car primer paint, and then sprayed some yellow, fluorescent yellow on top. And that's worked out really, really well. And the reason why I've done that is because if you are flying a black model in the sky, it is very, very easy to get disorientated. So I put bright colours on this one, bright stripes on it, because it does make the model stand out. And then on the bottom, I did use some of their stickers to make some stripes on one of the undersides. And this really did help with orientation in the sky. So maybe you're thinking about buying this model for a line of sight model. You need some bright colours on it, because black models for line of sight flying are absolutely terrible. And I'm going to say I'm a mildly experienced pilot. I'm not a pro pilot or anything like that. I've just been flying for about a year and a bit. You know, admittedly I fly a lot. But I can wholeheartedly tell you when I first flew the Reptile S800 is that I did get disorientated with that wing for a few moments, okay, and this one's pretty much exactly the same. So put some bright markings on your wing. So that's actually 11 points on there, and I know I said 9 or maybe even 8 back at the beginning. There's a lot to be considered about this wing, and the one thing which I want to leave you with, which is that if you are new to FPV, this wing is not the wing for you. A Reptile S800 is a far superior choice for you because it's far more robust, in short. And like I said, in the top right hand corner, if you click on the little eye icon, there'll be a link there to the Reptile S800 series. Again, remember that wing was bought out of my own money as well. However, if we take from the other angle, which is that maybe you already own an S800, or a similar FPV wing, and you're looking for something to upgrade. You want some extra speed, you want a bigger battery bay, you want a bigger wingspan, maybe you want more speed, maybe you want more efficiency. Then is the AR Stealth Wing good value for money? Remember, it's twice the price of a Reptile S800. It is a nice model. It flies fast, and it would be an upgrade for you for or for coming from an S800. Is it worth twice as much money as an S800? That is a decision which only you can answer. So, on that note, I sincerely hope that you've been and found this all-in-one episode for the full-blown review of the AR Stealth Wing at least interesting. I've tried my absolute best to give you an unbiased, fully rounded look at the AR Stealth Wing. The guys in the Facebook group, they've been saying that, oh Matt, there's been another review out on this wing, why didn't you go and take a look? And I have purposely not looked at anybody else's reviews because I don't want to bias my own review for you. This wing has issues. I am going to repeat them. CG, wingtips, cooling, massive issue around cooling. This thing needs bloody great big holes in it because there is zero ventilation in there. It's twice as expensive as a Reptile S800, which I don't think other people are going to bring up, okay? The push rods are crap. The wing flexes too much, okay? You don't need a lot of elevon movement. And remember, the manual was, frankly, absolutely useless. You do need to trim off the underside of the edges of the elevon so you get full movements. I do think the wingtips will break off within a couple of flights. You don't need a lot of movement in the elevons. You do need to paint the wing. And I think that was all the notes which we covered. All in all, it is a good model. And on that note, I am going to leave you with one thought in the back of your mind. I did buy this model out of my own money for my own abuses. I hope, for the best of my abilities, I've been able to give you a well-rounded review. If you have any questions or comments about this wing, please just ask in the comments section underneath this video. And that's all I can really say, other than to say a massive thank you to you for taking the time to watch this episode. And on that note, from myself, Matt, cheerios!